Well, we're here at MDI High School as part of our Meet the Teacher weekly video series, and I'm with Mark Carignan, who is the freshman guidance counselor here at the high school. Mark, we were talking a little bit before we turned the video on. How many freshmen are in the high school right now?
Well, right now we have 127 in the current class. The incoming class is 156.
So next year's class, you're expecting 156.
Yep.
Holy cow. So MDI is actually growing in terms of students attending the high school.
We've got a little bit of a bubble from a couple of the sending schools, up one or two. And of course, since we've got so many schools, a little bit of a bubble of one or two students, and each of them knocks it up. And we've also picked up a bunch of students from outside the district.
So as the freshman guidance counselor, you're responsible basically for the smooth transition as they come from middle school as 8th grade to I guess they call that middle school.
Yep.
Still middle
Yep.
school to the high school.
Yep. We have a bunch of steps that we do that. I go out and meet teachers. I go out and do classroom program for every school that sends us students. That includes the Outer Islands. I go out and solicit information from the teachers on placement, recommendations, information about the students, how they learn, what they like to do. And then I do an interview with every student and every parent that's coming, about a half-hour interview. So I just wrapped those last week, 156 interviews this year.
Oh my.
And then we do an incoming 9th grade night, which is really successful here.
It's basically what they call step-up night.
Right, exactly. And it's they all come, all the kids come in. Out of 156, we only had 9 students that didn't attend this year as 8th graders. So it was a really successful night. And after that, we also have a program called Advantage MDI, which was actually developed by Michelle Gertler. And that's kind of a 3 half-day orientation program over the summer where the freshman class really comes out for the first time, meets each other, starts kind of figuring out how the school works. We teach them how to do lockers. We have a couple teachers come in and teach lessons and just have a lot of fun for 3 days.
It's tough when, I mean, obviously these kids, maybe they've been to the high school and seen a basketball game, or they've been to a football game, or they've been to the drama, to the theater. But really, I mean, these kids just have never been inside the high school before coming here for Advantage MDI.
Right. Well, the size and the numbers just staggers them a lot. Simple things like a combination lock can really be challenging for a freshman that's never had to deal with that, much less dealt with that in front of peers that they didn't know with a time limit. You know, it's kind of a challenge. Yeah. Or having to find room 201 instead of the football field is a lot more difficult.
Listen, I can relate to that too, because my experience with the high school for the most part has been to get to the gym or to the football field or the baseball field. And when they started sending me to, well, just go to room 204, I'm like, you mean there's a second floor here? I mean, there's 6-7 years, I didn't even know there was a second floor here.
And these kids are coming, you know, some of the schools only send 1, 2, or 3, 4 freshmen a year. So, you know, just the numbers of classmates. They frequently have their teachers for 3 years. Yeah. And then they come here, brand new set, 155 friends to meet their new best friend, and a million sports and activities, and it can be an overwhelming process.
Oh, I'm sure. And you know, and when you're dealing with 8th graders, incoming 9th graders, I mean, these kids are 14, 15 years old.
Right, and they're trying to figure things out at the same time. One of the questions I ask when I'm going out initially is how many students are nervous about their transition to high school. And you know, usually I'll get the brave ones will raise their hands. Then I ask the rest of the kids that didn't raise their hands to put their finger to their throat and check their pulse, because if they're not nervous about going to high school, they're probably dead.
Right.
And you know, we talk about, you know, the difference between fear and anxiousness and nervousness, and you know, the desire to perform, and the new beginning that they get an opportunity to make, and it's pretty fun.
And it's interesting because I mean, these kids were the top of their middle school, and you know, now are at the lowest of the rung on the social pecking as incoming freshmen?
Well, one of the examples I give them is, they all can remember what it was like to be a kindergartner or a first grader in their own school, and how they used to hold hands and go down the hall, and they'd see these giant hulking students at the other end of the hall that were the big hairy 8th graders, and how intimidating that was. And now they're the giants in the hall, and they're about to once again return to being those new kids, having to look up at the big hairy seniors. So it seems to kind of put their minds at ease. They know that they've done this before. This process of maturation is just another wave.
When I was in college, I was a junior counselor and a dorm director for a freshman dorm, and one of the things that they told us was, look, remember, these kids they're just, high school seniors coming into college. They're just 4 years away from being freshmen.
Right.
And, yes to the top, and then all of a sudden they're starting at the bottom again in that social pecking order.
Right.
And that can be tough.
Well, and just knowledge. They don't know the ins and outs. They don't know the shortcut. They don't know the lunch lady to be nice to. They don't know the quickest stairway to get to the gym class that you're worried about making it in time. There's so much unwritten knowledge and confidence. They're so busy trying to prove themselves mature that sometimes they don't have a lot of time to become mature.
This is your second year, second or third?
This is my second year here, but actually the only other school in the state of Maine that has a freshman counselor was my last school.
Which was?
And that was at Morse High School down in Bath.
Yeah. Which I remember because MDI used to play Morse in football.
Old rivals.
And it had that, if I remember right, it had that outside spiral.
Yep.
Which was 2 or 3 stories tall, and it was barely enough for me to carry up the stuff going up the spiral staircase. And I'm not really good with heights, and it would always seem to be windy, and that press box moves with the wind down there.
Yeah, it was a good championship we played against you guys back then.
Yes, and remember where you are now.
I also remember who won, so I've got no fear about that.
That was Morse who won on the final play.
No, I'm definitely a Trojan now.
So what brought you here to MDI?
Well, I've been in the business a while, as you can probably tell from my gray hair. And I actually started down in Searsport as a teacher, and that's where I did my master's. And as I was doing my master's, I took a leave so I could finish my practicum. And during that time, I visited this school and really checked out the programs and was kind of interested in a position here then. And I was just so impressed by, some of the forward-thinking plans that folks were making. And, of course, it's beautiful up here, and it's, where everybody wants to live. You want to live where you go on vacation. So that kind of drew me to it. So over the years, I've always told my interns, I've had a lot of guidance interns kind of work under me, and I've said, if there's ever a position up there at MDI, I'm going to jump on it because it's where I always wanted to be. And a couple of years ago, one of my interns from 15 years before said, "Hey, Mark, did you see that MDI has an opening?" And it was the day the deadlines were closed, so I did a rapid strike deployment of my references, and I was lucky enough to get the position. So I'm very happy to be here.
I'm sure. So we were talking, and you're strictly a freshman guidance counselor. For the most part, you were saying that some kids can request to stay with you throughout their tenure here.
Right. So, it's, as any counselor will tell you, there are some kids that you just click with. And one of the things I feel pretty strongly is if you've got a relationship like that, you want to be able to maintain it. I can remember I had a student at my old school who was really struggling with some behavioral challenges and a lot of stuff going on at home. And if he got into trouble during the day, I knew with confidence that I could bring him down. I could be the one. I could get him off the bad track and get him to a better place. And that is a pretty rare ability, and you don't want to give that up just for an alphabetical scheme. And the folks here are really supportive of my own view of that, and so I've been able to kind of keep some of those quirky kids that I really love to work with.
One of the things you mentioned that you liked so much about the guidance office here, it's not strictly a college we're going to get you into college. We're going to help you find the right college.
Right.
Can you expound on that?
Yeah,
a little
well,
bit if you
so somewhere someone's watching this and saying, Carignan, you're busted. Years ago, I worked in middle school as a guidance counselor for a long time, and I was really pretty much into the counseling process. And for me, the counseling process in school is helping students deal with anything that gets in the way of their learning. And, that's a pretty wide scope of services.
Let's face it, there are so many things that can get in the way of a student, whether it's hunger, whether it's poverty, whether it's some behavioral issue.
Grief, mental health, substance abuse, bad study habits, crisis at home, death in the family, divorce. I mean, there's just a horde of things that can get in the way of academics. And so as I was down there feeling quite full of myself in middle school, I would frequently say, and be quoted as saying, high school, where good guidance counselors go to die. Because it is a pretty common model that all they do is college. And that's a trap, I think. It makes you only serve, the top, 50% of your kids at the expense of everyone else. And really, those are the easiest ones to help.
Right.
I really love the college selection process. I grew up on a college campus. I've visited a lot of schools during my life. I've helped kids, a lot of kids to a lot of different schools. So I like that part of my job. But helping kids break cycles of poverty, helping kids be the first generation to make that jump, finding a student that desperately wants to learn but has to find the right place to do it, that matchmaking process is really fun too.
Right.
And we do both here. And we do it aggressively and we do it well. And we're very thoughtful about the time we allot and how we plan. This is a job that you work late. And I very seldom get out of here before 4:30 or 5, but it's a great job. And I go home knowing that I've accomplished something. Just about every day I know I've accomplished a pretty successful day.
I mean, let's face it, especially in an island environment, there are kids that are going to go not to college, but go directly into the workforce.
Yeah.
And it's, and I mean, I remember my conversation interview with Elena Strout was that, look, we want to prepare you to be a good business person. Right. If you're going to become a captain, or if you're going to be working on the island or on the water.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we all say here is we don't want you to just get a job. We want you to get the job. And because I'm from Southern Maine, I started out being a guidance counselor in South Portland about the same time as the fisheries were drying up, and we had a lot of fishermen that had families in South Portland, and I kind of watched the collapse of that economy. So I'm pretty sensitive to the health of fisheries and the trade of being a fisherman. Right. And then in Bath, we have a lot of students at Phippsburg that kind of deal with that, and they don't have quite the fishery that we do, but it's pretty strong. But they've kind of come over a little more pressure to consolidate, to form co-ops. Some folks are trying to buy other people's boats to kind of copy the same thing that's in the larger fisheries. So it's a changing environment, and I because I saw the collapse of the fishing stock down there, I'm really aware that we're a bad virus or a climate change away from really having the lobsters shift.
Oh, right.
And that could be huge. And if that happens, our fishermen need to be able to be nimble. They need to be good businessmen. They need to have a second job. They need to have something to do when their knees go or their backs go. They need that skill set. And we've got a real healthy fishing community here, and I think by and large people get that. But it's a message that we just definitely pound out.
Yeah. What's the best thing about working here at MDI High School?
I've never been in a place so willing to lend support to a student. If in other schools I've worked in, if a student needed assistance in something, well, I better make time in my day to do that. Sometimes you could get them into access, maybe get a special ed support, but maybe not. Here, it's about what the student needs and delivery. And I've got a team of folks that are committed to that. I've got teachers that really are concerned. I've got administrators that I can go to anytime and ask for something. If a student needs it, they will work with me to make it happen. And I can't tell you how many times I've been supported in that. And it makes my job not only easier, but more effective,
How many guidance counselors are there in this?
There are 3 in this district, 3 in this building, but most of the elementary schools also have counselors.
All right, so you've got a freshman guidance counselor that oversees kind of the the transition, and I mean, my God, I can't imagine meeting with 150 some different. I mean, and it's in a consolidated period that you're doing that.
Yeah, 50. I did 52 in 1 week when I was doing Connors Emerson.
Wow.
So it's pretty dense, and then they farm out between Megan and Michelle, and which is also great because we collaborate and consult all the time. You know, there are offices where there's a cartoon where there's people looking at someone jumping off a bridge, and one person turns to the other and says, "You're a guidance counselor, aren't you? Talk him off." And then he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, he's not at my end of the alphabet." And that's an exaggeration, obviously, but there are places where you don't cross alphabetical lines.
Right.
And here, you know, Michelle will come and ask me for help. I'll consult with Michelle. If I need to run an idea by, Megan's a great sounding board, and she'll talk over options with me. It's just a really collaborative environment.
So there are how many kids in the high school right now?
About 530. We'll be up a little bit next year.
But to have that many and have 3 guidance counselors, that's a huge workload. I mean, or a caseload.
It's actually not as bad. It's actually a little better than the norm. One of the things that kind of adds to our caseload is because we have a freshman model. I attend all the meetings for all the 8th graders after mid-year. So I'm attending IEPs, 504 student study teams. I'll frequently do multiple meetings with those students. So it's not only the interview with the parents, I kind of take over that aspect of their case. For example, this stack right here is the course requests I entered this week for all the kids I've been interviewing.
So you're putting in their courses to try and that they request whatever in terms of the English model or whatever.
And I also, so I've got the 8th graders that I take on board, I've got all the freshmen, and I have the sophomores until halfway through the sophomore year. So until January, I've also got the sophomores.
Wow.
So I've got about, at any given time, I have about 2 years of kids. So, 275 about.
And what time do you come in the day?
I am an early riser, so I like to get here around 6:45, 6:30.
And you're leaving at about 4:30.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's always sometimes you're just waiting for a phone call back from a parent, or you've got a lot of clerical stuff that you don't get done during the day because you're working with students and teachers, or there's always something more to do.
Wow. I mean, it's you don't have any kind of concept, I think, in terms of what a guidance counselor does.
This is a job where if you blow it, you can't.
Right.
You can't. And, you're going to make the wrong call occasionally, but you find people at their worst, when they're struggling, when they failed, when they're angry, when they're grief-stricken. You deal with people that frequently have mental health issues, sometimes, or substance abuse issues, or folks that want the absolute best for their child, who's an amazing sparkling jewel, or quirky, or the spectrum is huge. But the challenge, you don't ever have an easy day. Right. There's no one comes to the guidance. It's a rare visit to the guidance counselor because things are going well.
A check-in just to say hi.
Well, and you know what? The top students do that.
Yeah.
And those are free. Half the time, those are the kids that will stick with me as a counselor because I like a student that as a freshman says, "This is where I want to go. Help me get there."
Right.
And they work with you for the years.
But it's rare that someone comes in and
it's not where the majority of my time is.
Has that end game marked out.
Right, and which is usually a good thing. I don't want kids that have a laser beam on Stanford. I want them to think that Stanford is their goal, but to kind of widen the spotlight to include other schools. They've got to figure themselves out. And the mistake that they know themselves well enough to make that choice is one that a lot of kids stumble on.
Well, when you consider that they're coming in here at 14 and 15, I mean, who knows what you're going to do?
Exactly.
The changes in your mental state, in your education level, and your physical level.
I was going to be a Navy pilot. then I needed glasses. I was going to be a marine biologist, then I counted fish eggs. I was going to be a historical curator, then I taught a class. You know, you go through those changes, and it's a pretty rare thing that you stick to that one path. And then while all that's going on, you've got the social turmoil of, you know, having a friend that was comfortable and there to someone that really matches your interest, you know, and that those transitions go on, dating, that nightmare that goes on, you know, rebelling against your parents. I mean, it's kind of a petri dish for crisis here, which is exciting, and you know, we try and give the kids perspective on it.
Right. What's the one thing that if you wish you could change, you'd change? I guess let me ask you a question. What do you think of all the social media as a guidance counselor?
Social media is convenient and easy. I find the level of communication that goes on it is not great. You know, there's a lot of surface and shallow, and breadth instead of depth. And it has a lot of potential for use. There are a couple websites that ask.com is like the satanic website.
Yes.
You can quote me on that. And there are others that can. It's a rare piece
it's ask.fm
yes.
or something.
Yeah.
And if your kids are on that, all I can tell you is go look at the questions that are
get them off.
asked. Right. I mean, we've done stories on it on the WDEA website, and yet I see kids posting constantly, here's my ask.fm name, go ask me a question.
Right. It's one of those things. So social networking, much more headachy than benefits from our perspective. However, you know, I can remember spending 3 hours on the phone, stretching the cord as far as I could to get away from my parents. So, you know, I get the need to communicate and connect, but I think it's just a crappy form of that communication, and it's a rare piece of technology that can't be abused.
Right.
You know, so it's tricky.
What's the one thing that nobody knows about you, or that you want to confess to right now?
Well, I have to tell you, I thought a long time about this.
Yes, because you've seen at least one of these.
I didn't want to terrify anyone. Let's think of a good one. I'm an identical twin.
Really?
Yeah, which is terrifying to a lot of people. I guess one that's kind of a fun one that folks can relate to now is I actually dropped out of college at one point.
Wow.
And
where did you go?
I went to Gettysburg originally, and then I went to Bates and took a couple classes at UMA, and then actually finished up at Farmington.
Okay.
And and one of the reasons I kind of picked away there is I actually got a pretty good job working for a company, and was laid off and realized you know seniority matters and education matters. It really kind of brought it home to me more than anything else had. And I was looking for a job because I was thinking I wanted to go back to college and I needed to make money quickly. So I was Santa Claus at the Auburn Mall, which is more horrifying if you realize that I'm Jewish. So there's a certain amount of irony there. And back then I weighed about 170 pounds and didn't have all this, but that was a great job.
I was Chris the Moose.
Oh, at the Bangor Mall.
I was. And it was fantastic because my children were in Bangor schools. And so I would ask the children where they were from. And they would say that they were in Bangor.
Yeah.
And I'd say, oh, you had this for lunch today. And these kids would be like, oh my God, Chris the Moose knows exactly what I had for lunch today.
Ironically, my twin brother also was the Moose at one point. So I've actually done the Moose mic myself. So it's another connection we share, I think.
All right, the microphone's yours. What do you want to tell everyone?
What do I want to tell everyone? You will survive your freshman year. High school is one of the better experiences. If you're struggling a little bit, I can promise you it gets better. You know, I can remember my aunt telling me, you having a hard time in middle school? High school is better. And then when high school wasn't all that I had hoped, she told me college was better. And you know what? She was right. It does get better as you go forward. You get more in touch with yourself, and if you do it right, you enjoy it more. If I'm talking to parents, talk to your kids. Don't let go. It's a time when they're pushing you away. It's the time you need to hold on the tightest. And, check your phones. Be aware of what folks are doing on social media, with pictures, their sense of self. Really stay on top of it. And don't give up. It's not really how many times you fall down, but how many times you recover that's going to really measure your success. So go for it, parents. Don't take it easy.
Perfect. That's this week, Meet the MDI Teacher with Mark Carignan. We thank you for watching. We hope you watch all the videos we've got. There's also a link on, I think you're now number 19 that we've done in this series. So we hope you check them all out and check out all the videos we have on the WDEA YouTube channel.
And come out and see Joseph in the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat this weekend.
There you go. That would be this weekend, April 11th and 9th and 10th.
And next weekend, too.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.